Good morning, shifters and grifters, and welcome back to Devil's Advocate Gaming. We missed you. Grifflins is a roguelike deck builder crafted by the geniuses at Clay. They are the dev that bought you such classics like Oh Fuck, I'm Dead Again, Don't Starve Together, Cult of the Lamb, Oxygen Not Included, and other soul-draining time sinks dolled up to look like video games. Unlike DTS, Grifflins leans more on the science fiction side of things. The game's lore suggests that no one on this unnamed planet is native to it. Everyone's ancestors were basically marooned while venturing from their respective planets generations ago. Amidst the chaos, factions rose up vying for power and territory on the continent now known as Havaria. Law and order have never been known on Havaria. Some factions like the Admiralty or the Cult of Love enforcing their will upon others, but the latter is probably insane to some degree, and the former openly admits to making up laws on the spot. In this world of misrule and anarchy, factions employ grifters, individuals unassociated with any faction, to complete tasks ranging from diplomacy to assassination. That's where our gal Sal comes in. As one of Grifflin's three protagonists, Sal has a wealth of lore detailing her idiosyncrasies and general mindset, even if wealth is a relative term. Most other characters only get a couple of sentences to sum up what they're all about, but our three leads have story campaigns, give or take 60 cards worth of quotes, negotiation tactics, and wholly unique fighting styles to flesh themselves out. My aim in these next three videos is to analyze our terrible threesome and see what makes them tick. Are they regular products of their environment, or is there something more tickling the backs of their skulls, making them exceedingly dangerous in a world that's already exceedingly fucked up? Now, because I forgot to mention this in the Life is Strange videos, let me make something clear. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or counselor of any kind. I want to apply real-world psychology to very fictional characters in a completely harmless manner. We're all having fun here. And if you are having fun, do leave a like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff helps. And now that that's out of the way, let's get started. When Sal was young, I'd say about 10 years of age, her parents were part of the Rise faction. Who are the Rise? They're assholes. They have the audacity to be next to useless in combat, and if you negotiate against them, unless you're aggro as fuck, just assume you're gonna have a bad time. I suppose in-universe they are the closest thing to being considered the good guys, but the bar is just too low for that to be a compliment. Anyway, a rabbit hole awaits us. The Rise factions are a faction set juxtaposed to the Spark Barons. The Barons are a faction fixated on unearthing and repurposing ancient technology. To these ends, they often overwork and straight up exploit their laborers. The Rise exists to advocate for worker rights and educate laborers on the strength they hold in raw numbers. Obviously, the Barons aren't too keen on this. In her youth, Sal was mentored by Fish in the art of hand-to-hand combat, all the while being trained in bounty hunting by Cascio. Both were friends of the family, emphasis on were, cause when Cascio got her hands on some ancient tech, she flip-flopped like a taking politician. She sold the tech to the Spark Barons, and even earned a promotion in their ranks by selling out and assassinating Sal's parents. In order to pay off the debts they left behind, Sal was sold into slavery. This is the part where I feel the need to diverge for a bit and talk about trauma. Traumatic events typically leave subjects in a deeply distressed state. Problem is, in a world where you can have a bounty placed on your head for eating pickled foodstuffs, everything should feel like a traumatic experience. At least to normies like you and I. The thing is, trauma isn't dictated by the events themselves, but the individual's capacity to cope with it. I'm sure that Sal must have gone through a fit of depression and confusion in her youth. Being orphaned and enslaved will do that to you. But let's just slide that topic into our collective pocket and move on for now. Now, as we play through Sal's campaign, we get to see the type of person that she's grown into. I don't think she's evil by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly not as bad as Cascio. Sal was raised by Rise parents, so she at least has a sense of right and wrong, but at the end of the day, she isn't an opportunist and primarily a bounty hunter. You'll have to forgive her for not being here to make friends, not most of the time anyway. Of all of Sal's choices, from how you find Cascio to what you ultimately decide to do with her, turn her in or kill her, are made entirely by the player. Couple this with the fact that the game is a roguelite, meaning that entire routes and options could be replaced or just straight up unavailable on your next run, and you start to see why these characters are so hard to, well, characterize. That's why the lore on these cards always do it for me. Attached to each card is a quote taken verbatim from or directed at the character in question. As you start with your basic cards, you may think to yourself, wow, they said that? But as you unlock more cards, you're also filling out your own perspective on the grifters. This subtle drip feeding is how the game conveys the bulk of its character depth and world building. If this was a lot of other game studios, my jaw would have dropped. But this is Clay we're talking about. I'm impressed but not surprised. Now let's discuss those aforementioned cards. Just like in any deck builder, cards are used to engage enemy forces. How you go about engaging foes is where Griffins gets to flex. You can fight until your opponent begs for mercy or make it to the death, whatever you fancy. However, if you really want to flex your mental prowess, go ahead and negotiate. In a way, negotiating acts as a soft buffer between you and your opponent. You don't gain anything when failing to negotiate, but unlike combat, you don't die either, so it's a less risky option. Negotiation cards show off how the grifter's mental tactics and quick thinking come into play. Maybe they'll bulldoze through, shouting down and intimidating the opponent, or maybe they'll be charming and more agreeable through finesse their target. It's for this reason that I want to explore Sal's negotiation deck before we talk about what she's willing to do to someone in the ring. Sal's diplomatic style revolves around gaining, maintaining, and spending influence. Influence in-game acts as a modifier, making all diplomatic cards deal max damage. Still on the more moderate side for sure, but consistency is key with diplomacy here. And if you allow me a quick sidebar, let's talk about the real world parallel. When someone has influence, they sway the people they interact with more easily. This is definitely Sal's main strat, as cards like Subtlety, Beguile, and her signature, Flatter, give me the impression that she'd like to manipulate the temperament surrounding the negotiation just as much as the negotiating itself. Not to say she's all fluff and no filler. Cards like Hard Facts, Appeal to Reason, and Elucidate all seem to allude that Sal is more than willing to keep her opponent up to speed. Lastly, her defensive options, Keep Cool, Calm, and Aplomb, portrayed a steadfast aura about Sal, as if nothing really rattles her. When diplomatic, Sal seems to want everybody to leave satisfied to some degree. If we assume Sal's a good person, and I do, this is possibly her first resort. But at the end of the day, Sal is here to do her job. And may God spare your soul if you're trying to get in between her and her greenbacks. Cause she sure as hell won't. Sal's hostile style seems to be destroying the opponent's confidence, by shouting them down while threatening violence. It starts with cards like Obtuse and Oppress. Sal ebbs the opponent out, discrediting them at every turn. As things heat up more, her Gnarl is replaced by a Bellum. Sal seems to welcome a shouting match when she's like this, and has no issue being straight up disrespectful in this form, as we see in cards like Threaten and Abrupt Remark. The last stages of Sal's hostile posture, I think anyway, are the cards Scorched Earth, Domineer, and Erupt. Things weren't exactly civil up until this point, but Sal has moved on to full-on aggro. And this is where I'm gonna have to ask you to reach into your pocket for me. Remember when I said Sal may have some trauma she needs to work out? Well, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but again, 10 years of slavery. And it's not like it was 10 years of slavery after some intense therapy. Sal had to find out her parents died and was sold into indentured servitude for what is essentially a sci-fi oil rig. That confusion and depression and rage have been allowed to marinate for a decade, and now it manifests as pure, unadulterated wrath. Sal's main hostility argument is dominance. Dominance adds to the raw amount of damage hostility cards do at a rate of +1 damage per stack. I should probably mention the real life parallels of dominating a conversation, but I'm too disappointed in myself for not ending this segment with that unadulterated wrath line. Well, I thought it was pretty cool. So we've seen Sal try to talk things through, then we've seen her get heated. Sorry, Rook. Now we get to see what she's willing to do when it's time to scrap. Sal's combat is split into 4 overlapping styles: Combo, Improvise, Discard, and Bleed. Combo is a mechanic that showcases Sal's discipline. Some attacks will give Sal combo points after they land. Combo are spent for finisher cards, rewarding her with perks ranging from extra damage to debuffs and buffs. Notable combo cards include Echo Strike, which portrays some pretty solid logic on Sal's part: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Sneak Attack and Reversal, which showcase her opportunism, albeit from different angles. And Murder Bay Boxing gives us another pinch of insight as to how hard Sal's life was at the Derricks. I guess we should also mention Hammer Grip and Combination, as they display just how much and how fast she can punch/stab you. Improvise and Discard styles are a little harder to quantify. Improvising, when it comes to Sal specifically, leans towards think up an attack on the spot, utilizing factors in your control, usually from a neutral or advantageous position. Discarding also involves thinking fast, but at the cost of overexertion, moving with such speed or attacking with such force that you injure yourself in the process. Lastly, we gotta talk about Bleed. This style is as brutal as it gets. Sal basically cuts and stabs a target until they bleed out or yield. I hope I don't need to explain why slitting someone open like hung game is fucked up, but let's talk anyway. First cards that come to mind are Saber Grip and Vertical Slash. Useful cards for sure, but the lore on them shows that, on some level, Sal's okay joking while she does this. Red flag number 1. Then we have cards like Gouge and Gash displaying just how knowledgeable she is in the art of drawing blood. To make matters worse, cards like Hemiphage and Ravenous imply that Sal has readily embraced or is open to the idea of cannibalism. Now I don't mind a little crazy, but when you find out someone you know is on that Hannibal Lecter shit, that's your cue to get packing. So what can we say about Sal Fallon? I think we can agree that she's a shrewd negotiator. Sal has a knack for diplomacy, as we've seen her instances of empathy and clemency. If you want to make things difficult, she'll be more than happy to weaponize a decade's worth of seething rage. After shouting you down and shattering your self-esteem, Sal has a myriad of close-quarter disciplines to put you in your place. If you're lucky, she'll just combo you into a corner, pulverizing you with trained blows and improvised strikes in tandem. If you've proven unworthy of the effort it takes to restrain you, Dog and Gur, Sal's twin blades, will make quick work of you. With every glistening flicker of her blades, you grow increasingly lightheaded and pale, until one or the other, your resolve or your blood, completely gives out. After the last excision, after you teeter and collapse into a crimson pool, and long after your vision began to blur and fade, you may wish to cast an upward glance at your assailant. This slave turned avenger turned prosperer should be a source of inspiration for Havarians. But here in the Grifflands, she's just another tale. Not one to be easily forgotten, though I'd imagine that just comes with making it to the top. Hey there. Yeah, I see you. If you made it this far into the video, that means one of two things. Either A, you legitimately want to hear about what I think about Sal, my final assessment of the little bugger, or B, you're just letting us play in the background while you do better shit. And more power to you. Thanks for getting those numbers up for me. This next part's not going to be scripted either. I haven't been able to just talk into the mic for so long. So that's what this is. This is going to be completely freeform. And sorry if there's any noise, rain, vehicles, whatever. Hand to God, every car, train, plane, and fucking everything else that runs on gas or electricity just decides to boot up the moment I open this laptop. Every fucking time, guaranteed, I promise you. I legitimately just don't have the time to edit it out anymore. But enough about me. Sal's fine. I think Sal is doing great, especially in comparison to the rest of the people around her. That's not something I'm going to be able to say about Rook and Smith, but we'll get into those fucking powder kegs in the future. Now, as far as Sal goes, everything about her upbringing, from her parents getting murdered to living in the Derricks to coming out with not a cent to her name, shit, she even started in the Rise that were warring with the Spark Barons at the beginning. All that should scream post-trauma, but Sal just comes out stronger from every single thing. She just comes out swinging. So yeah, she's fine. We can only rate our social behaviors on the society around us. So if the society is batshit crazy and she's a semi-functioning human being, if anything, she's doing better than everyone else around her. Now, I'm not exactly far enough into this YouTube stuff to ask you to drop cash into a Patreon or to subscribe to whatever advertisement, sponsor, deal thing, but I think I'm just far enough to ask you to leave a like, subscribe, and to leave a comment down below for other characters you'd like to see me pick apart. The idea for this series is that I look into a character's origins and then I see how their gameplay mechanics reflect their character, and I just kind of go from there. So if you want to see this done to more recent characters, I don't know, Iron Core and shit, I guess is popular now. I don't think I want to touch Baldur's Gate. Or maybe some older stuff. I'm already thinking about looking into things like Infamous, Gravity Rush, little gems from my childhood. If you're on board for stuff like that, subscribe, ring that little notification bell, and you'll know when I'm through getting more stuff out to you. Rook and Smith coming soon. But other than that, I bid you all adieu. I will see you all on the flip side.